Okay, so you are going to take your right hand and bring it to the outside of your head, pulling that neck slightly over to that right shoulder. Take that left hand and reach down toward the ground, and then take your left hand up and repeat the same thing. Again, pulling that neck toward that left shoulder and stretching through that right hand toward the ground. Then gently tip your chin forward and back. Again, you're not going to complete end range of motion. You're just doing this to start to loosen up those muscles in your neck. Reach out with that left hand, and you're going to take your right hand to slowly start bending back the fingers of the hand, getting a stretch through your forearm. And then repeat the same thing with your fingers tucked down toward the ground. Again, this should be giving you a stretch along your forearm. Repeat the same thing with your right hand, using that left hand to facilitate stretching of that forearm. This is a really good stretch to incorporate if you do a lot of work that requires grip. Your forearms can get pretty tight. Then facing forward, you're going to intertwine your fingers and you're going to work on just kind of moving those wrists and shaking it out. So you're going to go in one direction and then really use your brain and focus on going in the other direction. Again, just getting mobility through that wrist. You want to just shake them out and get some good movement through that joint. Then interlace your fingers. This is going to be a lot of shoulder mobility. Again, just kind of working on loosening things up. My son calls this spaghetti. So you're going to do some spaghetti movements. And then again, using that brain, work on going in the other direction as well. Then you can just shake it out, kind of do whatever feels good. Swing those arms back and forth. The focus this month is really just whole body mobility, head to toe. So you can do those high steps, swinging those hips out. You can also add bringing them inward if you want to. Then you're going to find your squat stance, and you want to be able to find a spot that you are comfortable going pretty much up and down just into a squat without having to do a lot of repositioning. You're going to park at the bottom and then use your elbows to push those knees outward. Then you can either place your hands on your feet or on the ground and work on stretching through those hamstrings. So we're going to be going back and forth from a squatting position up to a kind of bent over hamstring stretch. Again, you want to find a position that's pretty comfortable that you can go back and forth between the two without having to do a lot of readjusting of your feet. And then when you're down in that bottom position, focus on trying to open up your chest and push that bottom down so that you can get that chest tall. Proud chest. Then you can come to a seated position. And we're going to do a figure 4 stretch. So whichever leg you want to start with, you're going to cross. In this case, I have my left leg crossed over and then reaching for the back of my right leg to kind of pull both legs toward me and kind of get a good stretch through the back of that left hip. And then switching. Again, in this case, the right leg is crossed across the left and then reaching for the hip or the back of the left leg and getting a stretch through the back of that right hip. Then you can plant both feet on the ground. You can do some butterflies with your hips if you still need a little bit more opening. Otherwise, you're going to come to a seated position. And for this next part, you're actually going to ditch your socks. We're going to do a little bit of footwork. Our feet really don't get a whole lot of love, so you can interlace your fingers with your toes. And kind of similar to the stretch that we did at the beginning with wrists, you're going to focus on, basically this is dorsiflexing and plantar flexing your foot. So basically pulling it up towards your nose and then pulling it away. And you're going to be focusing on also making sure that you get a stretch through those toes. So it's working on the muscles of the foot. And then having your fingers interlaced actually helps kind of spread those toes a little bit, because most conventional shoes pretty much crunch our toes. Then you're going to do some ankle rotations and make sure you do some circles in each direction. Again, working on getting some good mobility to that ankle joint. Repeat the same thing on the other side. I think I moved so you can see a little bit better. Interlacing those fingers. And again, just working on giving those feet a little bit of love. I think we spend a lot of time in shoes and conventional shoes that kind of squash our feet. And so it's really good to do things that get you in touch with those muscles of the feet, because they actually have a really important role in stability. And they tend to be pretty helpful. Again, doing the ankle rotations in one direction and then the other. Special guest. And then we are actually going to do something called crocodile breathing. So in this case, you're going to lay on your stomach and your hands are going to be clasped together and about under your forehead. And what you're going to focus on doing is breathing into your belly. So you're going to actively take a really deep belly breath and then exhale. So breathe in through your nose. And you're going to work on forcefully exhaling through that belly. So breathing into your belly and then actively exhaling. This is a really good exercise that will get you in touch with your TVA. Also, if you're working on doing any lower abdominal and core work. And it's also a really good relaxation exercise, because most of the time we breathe just into our lungs and just extremely shallowly. Then we're going to finish up with some cat-cow. So with this, really focus on making sure that you get the extension through your thoracic spine. A lot of times we want to make our lumbar spine be the mobile part, the lower part of our spine, when the part of our spine that's actually meant to be the most mobile is the upper part of our spine, not the cervical vertebrae up by your neck, but the part through our mid-upper back. That's where we should have most of our mobility coming from. And a lot of times we spend time just being super tight in office work with our hands in front of us, and so this can be a really good thoracic mobility. And then push back to child's pose. This is going to be your resting position. You can walk those hands out, get a good stretch through the back of your shoulder, and just hang out there. Enjoy, and thanks for coming to this month's mobility.